Chevrolet's got a really good looking electric Blazer. Does it have the rest of the outfit to match? I'm Jay. Unfortunately, Steph can't be here, and this is Modern Motoring. GM's had a pretty interesting history of electrifying their vehicles. There was the EV1 back in the late 90s. There was the Volt, which wasn't a full EV, but still electrified. There's the Bolt EUV, and what we have here, which is the Blazer. There's the Equinox, which we have in a couple of weeks, and we'll get to a review on that. There's also the Lyriq, and there's a few other offerings in the pipeline coming through, and GM and Honda have worked together to create the Prologue. It's not always best to be first. There's the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, Kia EV6, there's the Ford Mustang Mach-E, there's the Volkswagen ID4, there's the Subaru Solterra, and the Toyota, I never get this right, BZ4X, there it is. And Kia's got some other electric vehicles. They've got the Niro, for example, and of course the EV9. So all that to say is that the Blazer is not the first to market by a long shot. There, some may say incredibly late, some may say fashionably late. Not helping the Blazer's case was the stop sale just after it came out in early 2024. Software issues were the culprit, but they've got them all fixed up and the prices have been knocked down a little bit. Super Cruise will be available, they say, at a later date. The first thing that came to my mind is, well, they're just going to yank the steering wheel out and put a new one in. I really wish that they were able to put that in right away, and even not right away, but maybe after the stop sale was lifted, just as an extra way of adding value. Because Super Cruise is a fantastic system. I've used it quite a bit, and it's one of the better ones out there. So with that, I'm going to move the camera from over there to right over there, and let's go talk about the 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV. On the road with the 2024 Blazer EV, let's get straight into the good stuff, which is power and battery size. So it's an 85 kilowatt per hour battery, and our power figures come in at 288 horsepower, 340 pound-feet of torque. This is the top trim RS all-wheel drive. There is an LT all-wheel drive, and there is an RS rear-wheel drive, and this is all per Chevrolet Canada's website. If you do opt for the rear-wheel drive version, you get a little bit more power. You get 340 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. Now, range also goes up. There's two different figures on the Chevrolet Canada website, which is a little odd. It's either 515 kilometers of range with the rear-wheel drive, or it's 521. Bottom line is, it is more than the 449 kilometers of range here. As far as charging speeds go, with the all-wheel drive, Chevrolet says you can go with a speed of 150 kilowatts, but if you opt for the rear-wheel drive, you can get that up to 190. I had this on a level 3 yesterday, and it was Dixie and Eglinton, close-ish to where I live, and it was a 50 kilowatt flow charger, and the highest I got was 33, and it says that's what the vehicle called for. So a little puzzling there as to why there is such a big discrepancy of, almost half of the charging speed. So there are three options you have for one-pedal driving. You can have it off, and that's fine if you just don't have any interest in it. You can put it on, and the third option you have is high, which makes it a very, very aggressive brake regen to get back some of that power, and it's not quite jarring, but you really do feel it. The RS trim comes with 21-inch wheels, and the LT comes with 19s. What's interesting is that there is no change in range at all. It's still the same 449 with the all-wheel drive version. Now, as I get going, again, it's not the most powerful vehicle in class, but I don't think it needs to be. I think people in this segment aren't looking for performance, and if you do want performance out of your Blazer EV, there is an SS trim coming, and that's got, I think, 557 horsepower. But back to this RS trim. The power delivery is fine. It's an electric vehicle. You get that instant push of torque right away. It's fairly quiet at lower speeds, and I know it's a cliche statement, I know, but I'm saying that to say this. It is unusually loud at higher speeds, and it's an EV. It should be quieter than what it is, but I was a little surprised at just how loud it gets in here when you're on the highway or freeway or wherever it is that you're doing your 60 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour. And I'll just bring it up a little bit. And oh, that road noise and wind noise just finds a way in the cabin. It can be okay to some people who don't care about it, but it's a little disappointing here that it's so intrusive. The Blazer EV comes with 4 different drive modes here. It's normal, sport, snow/ice, and my mode. My mode, I'm gonna just tap it right now, and it lets you do some adjustments to it. So I've sat in normal. I wouldn't have minded an eco, but I guess they figured with the average power figures, taking a little bit of life out of that through an eco mode may have been a little too much on the reduction side. As far as cornering and handling goes, it's a bit lower to the ground, and if you're wondering what it's like compared to the Blazer, just as a little side note, the wheelbase is about 6 inches longer here. The steering is light, and I've got no problem with that. It just makes it fairly responsive, not too much oversteer, not too much understeer, and because it's their Ultium electric platform, batteries are in the floorboards, they're right at the bottom, so it helps keep you planted with that nice lower center of gravity. And again, it's the class of vehicle and it's the buyer. Not a lot of people will be buying this for the, half-assed, can I fling it around a corner and, can I get that back end to spin out, right? This is a very function-first vehicle. As an everyday commuter car, as someone's primary car, or even secondary car, it will do the job, as long as you don't mind a little bit of extra noise. Let's jump to the inside, and a couple of interesting things. There's no spare tire here to save weight. On the top trim RS that I'm in right now, there is no option for a sunroof. It is very dark in here, and I would not want to be a rear passenger on a longer drive. There are small little side windows next to the actual rear windows that let in a little bit of light, but just having such a dark cabin without even having an option to pick up a sunroof is a little weird. Yes, the LT trim can be spec'd with a sunroof in the options. There's a little bit of build quality issues that I have. So that's some creaking from the infotainment system. That's some creaking from the digital instrument cluster. There's been the odd rattle in the heads-up display bin, and a little bit of creaking from the rear seats and the door panels. Regardless of trim, every Blazer EV gets the 11-inch digital instrument cluster, which is pretty good. You can configure it a couple of different ways. I shouldn't say configure. There's some pre-loaded different configurations that you can get as far as different layouts go. Only, I think, 1, maybe 2 of them can give you the actual percentage, and that's what I like. I like having both. Right now, I've got 347 kilometers left in the battery, and I'm at 69%. Heads-up display only on the top trim RS is what we have here. Just over to the right is the 17.7-inch infotainment system. I quite like this one because it's not oversized despite it looking oversized. It's right sized for me. And HVAC controls are all on the bottom of the screen, but GM/Chevrolet did put some physical touch buttons for the on-off, the auto, the rear defroster, front defroster, and your fan speed. In between the infotainment and the instrument cluster, right at the top is a volume knob, which is good and great. Thank you so much for that. But you turn it and you can see the volume going up, and it shows you through a little scale as to how much it's going up. But the moment you stop using it, it goes blank. I think that's a bit of a weird move. And just above that, there is an on-off button for the screen itself. There is no Apple CarPlay. There is no Android Auto here. I'm on Threads. On my personal account, I just put a quick question up. I'm like, hey, just heads up, the 24 Blazer EV does not have CarPlay or Android Auto. Is this a deal breaker for you? And I've got a very small personal following, like whatever. But I think there were 63 comments last time I checked it. People are very either for it or against it. And I hope they bring it back. I think it's a miss. I think this is gonna be just like when BMW tried to get people to jump on a subscription service for heated seats. I can't see this lasting. I understand why Chevrolet is doing this. I definitely don't agree with it. There are some cool designs for the vents. You get the 3 in the middle just beneath the infotainment, and they have those little red inserts like a lot of the new GM products do. But the ones closest to the doors, they're this nice little translucent red for the topping, and still with the red little single inserts in them, not quite single inserts there. I call them teeth. I'm just gonna say what I think on it. Seats are pretty comfortable. I've got no issues with that. Power seats for the driver, and 6-way power seat for the passenger. Lots of storage. There's a deep spot, not covered, just a deep spot itself beneath the vents. There's a little bin here as well. My problem with that is, yes, it's nice and it's deep, but the problem is that's where the 2 USB ports are. And you cannot close the cover with a USB port plugged in because it closes right on the actual cover itself. It's just bad engineering and bad design. RS trim also gets your wireless charging, and there's a fairly big center console bin as well. Rear seats are also fairly comfortable, and you get heated seats for the outboard passengers here in the RS. You get a couple of USB ports. I wouldn't mind spending, let's say 2-3 hours there, but that lack of a sunroof will make it feel so dark. On the cargo side of things, it's 722 liters of cargo space here, a little smaller than what we have in the internal combustion Blazer. Seats go down 60-40, so if you do have something longer or larger that needs to be transported, then there you go, you have that. On the standard safety side of things, every single Blazer EV comes with automatic emergency braking, forward collision avoidance, lane keep assist and lane departure warning, and your automatic high beams. The RS also gets you a head-up display, adaptive cruise control, the digital rearview mirror, which really isn't a safety thing, but it can be, but it can't be, but I'm going to call it that, and a 360-degree camera with multiple viewpoints on it. I'm not going to spend too much time on the exterior because, well, looks are subjective, but I will say that I really like what Chevy's done here as far as the design goes. It doesn't look too quirky and too far out there like the Ioniq 5 does compared to the rest of the Hyundai lineup. I like that it has a nice, I feel weird saying traditional, but traditional modern look to it. A nice long hood and a pretty fair-sized spoiler. And overall, it's not a bad look. I do like the light bar up front, and bonus points to having the little bow tie logo that lights up. A lot of T-themed lights as far as shapes go. And again, I think it's a nice look. It's a clean look. It's not quite ripping off the Thor's hammer from Volvo, but it gives the Blazer a nice distinctive look that stands out but isn't too offensive. Unfortunately, there is no frunk. Open up the hood and you can put your washer fluid in, and that's pretty much it. There's a panel with a fire person's helmet on it, and that's for the emergency services. Last touch on the exterior is I find the rear panel, let's say not quite quarter, but the rear half of the vehicle from the side profile looks a lot like the Murano. There's a lot of numbers, so the car is stopped, and I got some notes in front of me, so I'm gonna be reading off some of them because, well, my memory is good, but it is certainly not as great as it used to be. So let's talk about pricing to start off for what we have here. So our MSRP for the RS, the higher trim in all-wheel drive, is $63,999. And interestingly, according to Chevrolet's website, it's the same price for the rear-wheel drive. Go for the lower trim, which is the only other trim, for the LT, which only comes in all-wheel drive, and that's $56,999. So it was at the $7,000 difference between the LT and the RS. Now, there is a $4,425 federal incentive here. Let's go into the competition, and I count 5 of them. So, no particular order. Let's start with what's on the same BEV3 platform, which is the Honda Prologue. So, 3 trims, EX, EXL, and Touring. Lowest trim is the EX, $59,999, $1 less than 60 grand Canadian. 452 kilometers of range for the EX and EXL, and 439 kilometers for the top trim Touring. Let's go to the Cadillac Lyriq. I know it's not the same. Lyriq's luxury, Chevrolet is mainstream, but same platform. So the Tech all-wheel drive is the entry level into the all-wheel drive world of the Cadillac Lyriq. $70,694 for an MSRP and up to 494 kilometers of range. Next up is the Volkswagen ID4, the Pro all-wheel drive, $57,995, and range is 423 kilometers. On to the Ioniq 5, the preferred long-range all-wheel drive is $56,999 with a range of up to 414 kilometers, which is the lowest out of these 5 competitors. Well, 6 if you include this itself. And finally, the Ford Mustang Mach-E Select. All-wheel drive is $56,995. The all-wheel drive is a $2,000 option. There's a lot to like here. Still some growing pains. I think that the noise, vibration, harshness has to be addressed in 2025. Again, no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. That's a big, massive miss as far as making the vehicle attractive and fully modernized. Again, I get why they're doing it. I just wish they wouldn't. That's going to wrap it up for the 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with what I've said and my take on what it is? Do you disagree? Well, we're happy to engage, again, in that respectful conversation. Feel free to subscribe. The only way we can grow is with your help. So thank you, thank you, thank you. For watching. If you have subscribed, thank you. If you're thinking about it, we hope you do. And I think that I really miss Steph the most now because she is so good at these wrap-ups. So with that, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate the support. Feel free to subscribe, the social media stuff, engage with us on our social media. Those are the 5 points. And that's it. So see you in the next video.